Morning, everyone. So we've had a couple days to look over the Warriors Dark Gods changes. I haven't been able to get a game yet. I believe I'm playing on Thursday. That'll be good. But I have been obviously talking with different Warriors players and making lists on my own. I find it very difficult to make a list, not because I think Warriors aren't still good, but just because there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down, a lot of little changes. And as we said with the previous book, right? Um, we fight. A lot of our stuff just fights. So you're trading different fighting pieces, and there's little pluses and minuses for each one. And to be fair, I probably overthink it a little bit. But at the same time, I think that seeing what the meta evolves into around us is probably a bigger deal, or that'll be like a little bit more of a game changer as opposed to just making the perfect list right off the bat. So I want to take you through, I've done this in my head or on New Recruit several times, but I want to take you through, there's a process of making new lists and there's a process of, taking old lists and kind of just making them for the update. So, one thing that's kind of interesting in talking to people and making lists, when updates hit, people tend to get very like spammy with things where they're like, they see one thing that went down, they're like, I'm going to take 1 million of it. And, or they see, something that went up and they're like, I'm never going to take this again. Or they get some weird idea, the whole apprentice thing, apprentices got cheaper across the board and usually their mounts got cheaper. And so people are like spamming apprentices on mounts, especially like wizards on like griffin type things or on behemoths or on young dragons or something. Now they can't be apprentices because high elves can't take apprentices. And I think there's some solid ones out there potentially. There is I think the Eagle, Sylvan Elf Eagle Apprentice is 170. Good chaff piece. I think Druidism, despite the nerfs to the big, level fours essentially because of the single heal only. I think an Apprentice of Druidism is really good in an army if you have it, or even an Adept. I think the number one spell is really good. I mean, think about Wizard Hat. If you have Wizard Hat, at least from my point of view, and I've never really taken it, but when I think about taking it, I would love, to get the number one spell from Druidism because usually a heal is super good. I mean, even if you don't need the regen, the heal is usually worth the spell. I mean, there's a number 6 spell on fucking Cosmo is a heal for 7, right? And it comes with the spike or the you know what I mean. And it's longer range, blah blah blah. But to get 2 for 1, where you can get a really good combat buff and heal character, just seems really good. Especially if if it comes with an apprentice. But I'll say one of my counter arguments to this whole apprentice, I'll say meta. It's not really meta because it hasn't happened yet. But one of my counter arguments to this apprentice meta for some armies can do it, is that I don't like. Let's just say you want to take Empire Wizards with Fireball because you can spam them and put them on horses so they're chaff, right? So they're like 100 some point chaff pieces. And you're like, I get Fireball. And you're like, okay, that's cool. But a lot of chaff is used in the first couple turns. Not all the time, sometimes. And so if your spell dies turn 2, did you really need that spell? And then I guess the hard part for me is because I like such efficient magic phases, it feels weird for me to like, what do you do? How do you build a magic phase around that? Do you just say, I'm going to build a solid magic phase and then add some apprentices to be chaff slash spells? Well, that seems useless because you already have the magic phase. But then at the same time, you're not going to play 4 spells and 2 of them be on chaff apprentices, and then turn 3 you're down all half your magic. That's what's hard for me to think about. And that's why I don't know how popular it's going to be or how good it's going to be. That's probably it's probably popular. Um, in Warriors, for example, again, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just hard for me to. The concept is kind of difficult for me sometimes. Is the Wizard Giant? I think has play, but I feel like he has to not has to be. I feel like he is best played where his spell is like, oh, it's nice that he has a spell. Like I want a single model giant, and I'm okay with strength 5 over strength 6. And I think having this spell is worth it, whether it's breath or something. But if he dies, I have enough magic to survive the game without him. Whereas, sometimes I've been making these lists where it's like I need him to like survive because he has one of my only 2 combat buffs. Right? Well, the problem there becomes you have to play him differently. You have to play him like he only has the spell, potentially. Again, this is in my head. I haven't done it yet. And I don't want to do that. Like, I want to do monster first or whatever piece first, spell second. Not, I need this spell. I have to keep him alive. And so I've always been a proponent of mages that can fight. We see it here with this chariot mage. He used to be 460. The build used to be a little different because it doesn't fit anymore with anything. And the reason being is he's not a key fighter. He has 2 really good spells. I think that really kind of makes a difference. I think of this as taking a wizard and paying for him to fight, which in the old case, let's see, Adept went up 5, right? In the old case, it was 460 for the whole piece. So in this case, let's just look at this case. If we keep him, he's 235 without anything. So you're paying 200, 235, 250 to make him this, but you got to assume the binding scroll would be taken either way. So you're really paying 195. I forget actually. It's 235 plus 50. It's like 195, I think. You're paying like 195 to make him fight and have a good save, right? So essentially, you could take all his items away and you have 195 points extra. And then you kind of decouple. And then so the only downside to that, and only, I think now the points it's getting to the point where like you're paying a good bit for that ability, and especially since his ability got worse since he has to take Alchemist Alloy now, he's like Dragon, he was at least before. Anyway, it's 190 points. A normal Warrior's Chariot is 230. So you're basically you're saving 40 points by combining them. But then you could say you're putting your wizard at risk. The reason I didn't like it was because I have to now put my wizard in a unit, right? But it feels like that's not so bad nowadays. Like I get why people didn't take I like this guy. Listen, don't get me wrong. I liked him. I don't know if I like him for this points now. I think we're going to talk about lists that drop him, but I thought of the 190 points as saying I don't need to take chaff with him, or a bunker, so if you hit him, if you hit him behind your whole army, that 190 points would have been maybe the core unit you put him in potentially. Now he did have uses and stuff, so I don't know. I don't know if making him. I guess the point you're trying to make is like you have to see it like that. He is a wizard for 235. You're going to take a binding scroll in your army, so it's kind of built into the cost. I don't think it's fair. And then you're paying 190 points to say, we're going to turn your body into something that can fight and at least survive, with a good save. And so you have to ask yourself, for that 190, can you split it out and get something better? But it's also about safety for the sorcerer, right? You don't want your sorcerer to die. He had a 1-up save, but he, snipes, cannons. Luckily, this army had enough targets that you really weren't hitting the sorcerer. But also he just has a super efficient magic phase, right? So for 235, the reason apprentice spam I don't love is maybe in chaos more so is there are some good number one spells, but there are also some really shitty number one spells. As far as like, I don't know how to put this. Like fireball doesn't win you the damn game, right? Like you can win the game off of armor spell and glory of gold in the warrior's army. Like that's all you need when the magic phase comes. I've lost my herald turn 2, and my magic phases are amazing because I'm just four dicing both spells, and then you get what you need out of it. So you know, that's where I have the trouble of like I don't want to take two apprentices because if one dies, my magic phase goes to shit potentially. Um, you're still paying for this body of like do you want the body that it comes with? I don't like battle shrines. I've been bitching to people that I've wanted to take a sorcerer, no sorcerer, and take like two chosen lords and a herald. And there's a cool list you can do with that. But then like you're taking like a wizard giant and a battle shrine, and I don't know if I like it because you're paying 600 points for that just so you don't I don't know, just so you don't have to take a wizard, or you can't take a wizard because you don't have enough points in your hero slots. I don't know. That kind of feels bad to me. I don't know if I like that. That's an idea, though. But anyway, I think what I'm trying to say is I think we'll see a lot of apprentice spam stuff in the beginning, and then it'll kind of go away. I think people always try to make like really cool heroes, and like I think it just kind of gets to the point of maybe it's not even that good anymore. Actually, the only hero that would be interesting, like I think if you can take an Evo guy, that kind of gets like an Evo apprentice with those items. Like if this guy was just an apprentice, how much would he cost? He's still super expensive, right? I mean, I get you don't have to have the binding scroll, but if he doesn't have the binding scroll, and then you just take assault, it's just I mean that's like a chosen chariot with a spell, right? I mean it's a one up save. Chosen chariot's tougher. I don't know. Like this kind of shit just I don't know if I like it or not. Anyway, oh I deleted my goddamn thing. Alright, let me bring him back. Man, if this guy goes away, I have to stop making him. I've made this guy so many times on new recruit. Crazy. Well I have to take Alchemist Alloy now. But Hero's Heart. Fine. Right. Alright, anyway, that was a rant about different things. Anyway, here's the list I would have taken to ETC had ETC been in November. It was my final list I won a tournament with. It was the one I was comfortable with. So the one I felt was pretty good. I might have changed some stuff. Like this would have been obviously the basalt. This guy might have got Dragonfire Gem, maybe one little thing here or there. But this was basically the list I would have taken. And I really did like it. But obviously it's 183 points over right now. So changes have to be made. In order to keep this list in its style, this and you can take a look. It's pretty standard stuff that I've talked about. If I had to keep this list in its style, this is what I would have taken, roughly. This is a quick version. To talk about the changes, the Herald stays the same. The Chosen Lord drops his MR3 for Dragonfire Gem, which is something I was already considering doing. MR3 was pretty good, but I don't know. Just there's times where I'm just like, I just don't want Lash to like. If people force Lash at him, then it was kind of like obnoxious. We'll skip the mage for now. I had to make an elder both great weapons, which is kind of a not controversial, but a little bit, right? Like, is it worth it? I liked one great weapon. I don't think a paired weapon one is worth 40 more points to me. And then, so the question is the great weapon one good enough? I don't know. Is two great ones good? Should you do something else? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there are units out there that it just starts messing up against. Knights are the same. Core, I just switched to Pride. I actually saved 20 points in core because my core was 923 before, so this gets you closer to mint core. I don't. I really think it's gonna shift to like pride core. Um, I think lust is just super expensive. Like it's a lot of fucking points for lust. 60 points per unit to flee. It's so much of its cost is it's right. It's like 20% of its cost is in being able to flee, and I get it. It's good. It's really good. I mean, I can survive without it. I don't know. People talk about like you know failing charges and being able to flee and like it keeps them safe. Half the time, your warrior unit is fucking there for either support charging, being annoying, or um, holding objectives. Like it's really not this major part of your plan. I do actually am starting to like Pride a bit more on Warriors. Not just because it's usually cheap. Like oh, it's cheap on like everything. But and I think I talked about this in a post, maybe it wasn't on a video, where it's just really tough to break units with Pride. Like I think a discipline 6 rerollable check is like 67% on normal and like 90% on pride, and like march checks, stuff like that. Like it's not as important on the warriors. It's probably more important on like generals and stuff and like knights, but it's like 3d6 march checks is just so much better. Redirect checks on 3d6 so much better. So I think people act like, oh, you don't want to lose combat, blah blah blah. But I was like, sometimes I lose combat and I fail my steadfast 8, and it sucks. 3d6, you can lose by like 3, and you're actually really likely to hold. Like it's actually crazy how likely you are to hold. And if you put like a herald on top of it, and you're like 46 minimized, I mean, I don't even know the math because I haven't done it yet, but it's really good. So I think pride, like in comparison, is actually pretty freaking good. Um, just because they're very hard to shift these units and it's cheap. Yes, it's not lust, but I mean, I had 2 lust units. It's not like I was running 8 lust units in this list. It was just 2. And to be fair, they're not like the crux of the thing. I mean, a pride unit on the flank is going to hold things for longer, be more annoying. Yes, lust can flee and rally, sure. I mean, listen, I think in the last tournament in the last live tournament that I won, I feel like I fled like 3 times. I mean, I could have fled a couple times and they didn't charge me for that. So don't get me wrong. There is an implicit like advantage in the fact that I can go through terrain. Don't get me wrong. There's some great things about it with Strider. But I think you can get around. You can just deal with it. Like your life isn't over because of you have to take pride over it. So this core I still like. Again, this is fine. The Great Weapon Elder probably bugs me more than the Pride. And then the character slots, obviously I had to do this, and then it kind of gets a little tricky with this guy because you can't have 2 Dragonfire gems. So if you go with Alchemist Alloy, like it does kind of mess up this combo of if you want the Chariot Mage, it's like what do? Do you not take Dragonbane gem, which is I guess a possibility, and just take because you don't have the points either. So you obviously like you actually don't have the points to take him on the chariot, right? Because even if you took him on the chariot, like where do you drop 23 points from this list easily? You just don't unless you drop a great weapon. So I could see dropping this guy to like a black steed. He can hide with the knights. He can hide with the horsemen. He still fights. He's still that single model presence you were looking for before. He just can hide better, and it feels weird not having like a separate unit. I'm using air quotes, but honestly, he can run out by himself if he wants. There's no reason you have to put him in a unit. You can still put him in other, you can put him in the warriors or the barb horsemen if you really want to. He's not horrible in Barb Horseman. Like if you're going to charge like a character and you're going to hold him up with your 1-up save and you want to have a rank so you're steadfast at least. He's actually kind of one little bonus that I kind of liked about him on a horse was you can put him with your knights and then you could get that extra model. Too many times would I charge something in the flank and I needed one knight not to die, or even in the front, I needed one knight not to die so that I would have at 2 ranks to break their steadfast, and then one knight would die. So he at least gives you an extra body to potentially survive, um, the fight. Just like if you champ challenge something, right? You still get the rank because your mage would take the slot. So there is some bonuses for that. Don't get me wrong. I love the chariot version. I think it has a lot more potential to help when you charge with things. Um, this is definitely not some superior in my mind version, but I think given the points changes, it's not that bad. Um, all said and done, I think it's fine. Keep your mage a little safer. So this would be like the minimum change version, I guess you could say, where I could say, hey, this list worked for me. I had to make some changes. Some things got a little worse here or there. Still has my 4 scoring. Still has my 2 chap. I mean, it has what I like to call my outline or my basic structure of what I consider a good Warriors list. I like heralds. I like if I had to tell you how I like to build Warriors lists, and this is what makes it hard for me to play other lists. Um, for example, I have Little Thomas from Germany and Kirill from Russia. They like hate monsters, so they're all about like fuck Veldrake Elders, fuck single models. They barely take like the characters I take. They're like Herald. They still take Heralds, Herald, Sorcerer, and then potentially just like units. Like you know, this could be I think 10 knights without. I know Kirill likes this unit. Right, it's like 10 knights with just great weapons. No champion. Like that's the cost of an elder, right? This if you look at this. So it's like, is that better than elder? I mean, this guy has 5 attacks and some lateral movement, but this has a lot more attacks. It has 15 strength 6. It has a 1-up save versus shooting. It scores. It it's just so much. It's just a different unit, and they just like units. They don't like this. I'll take a unit of 3 Beldrakes instead of it. And I respect that. It's funny when they send me a list, like their list. I'm like, I like this list. When I try to make it myself and I think of playing it, I say, I don't know if I like this list. It doesn't feel like me. The same with like Hell Mauls. I actually think 2 naked Mauls, 1 naked Maul, 1 with a portal. I actually think it's very good. I don't know why I have this aversion to it nowadays when I make lists. It's funny because I used to always play the Hell Mall. And it's not like it's about the same price it was. I mean, I played it when it was more expensive. And whenever I guess I went to this double elder style and it just fit me and how I like to play the game that I just can't shake it. And I don't know if I should. That's the other problem too, right? It's okay to have different play styles than other people. I could probably never play that high elf list, like the Furion Scrub list. I don't think I could play it. Like I played it once in a practice game, but it's not me. So like to take that to like a big event, it's just you guys heard it before. Whenever somebody says like I hid in the corner or I had to hide or I couldn't win the objective or something, I'm like, what do you mean you couldn't win the objective? Just go kill him. It's just different. It's just not. It's a different mindset, and so I'm trying to build a list for my mindset, even though I want to play the other ones, and I might. It's just right now I don't get a ton of games because of the kid, and just I never got a ton. Whereas maybe I should let those lists develop and see how they play and stay in my own lane for now. But I digress on that. Um, Shit, I was talking about something right before I went on that rant, and I forget what it was. Um, but anyway, I like the monster stuff. Um, so this is a template. I have like a template for my list, right? So if I was going to tell you what my template is for my current, ETC is next month, and I have to get ready for it with the new update. Well, clearly, I'm probably not going to do something super crazy. I'm going to do something based off something I've played before. But my template usually is Herald and the Mage. Um, template? Question mark. um, so I always take a Herald. So like that's gonna happen. And then you could say that despite all my here and there, I really always want a sorcerer adept with alchemy. And we'll go as far in this instance to say that I always want a binding scroll in my list, right? So these two, this is like has to be in the list, right? And so the this is probably all I can actually put into the template, but the rest of the template in my head is, and this is in my head, you have to have two chaff. It can either be two dogs, two flares, or one of each. That is like, I think you should have two chaff. And I will lean towards I don't like two dogs. I prefer at least one flare because I need a reliable chaff that I just like it. So like the ideal I like to have 3 scoring out of core. 2 is potential. I won't scoff at 2 if you do like 2 warrior units and 2 dogs. That's probably the minimal. So actually here's a good way to do it. So let's just do the maximum and minimum way. So like the ideal core in this probably case would be, take the 3 times lust, save 90 points, and just go 3 times pride. Just deal with it. Right? And then the ideal chaff would be 2 times flares. Like if you really want to think about it, like this is ideal chaff, and then you could say, I don't know, you could say 2 elders is ideal as well. We'll just put both in. And then you would say chosen knights, and this is a debatable one we can talk about, right? So you're kind of like at this. Well, this is kind of like the template where you have all the magic you need, in my opinion. You can always add like a wizard giant, but this is all the magic you need is this and this. You have 4 scoring, 1 being really good and 3 being solid. You have 2 chaff, and you fill out with monsters and single models. And you still have 490 points left. So in this particular list, this is very close to the German ETC list where they had Gus, which you can't take anymore because of the monster limit. And then they had, this was the chariot guy, which cost 190, and they dropped this, blah, blah, blah. Things happened. Things changed. But you can't take Gus anymore. So you don't even have to worry about that, which is fine because I stopped taking it. And so you actually have a couple options here. And you have things you can do to kind of take these flare points and take them out of special. You can put both these into core. So keep this for example. Let's just make a duplicate template, right? You could say, all right, I'm going to take special. And again, there's probably things we haven't unveiled yet, and that's probably to be completely honest, it's probably more likely that I not develop something over time, but something kind of comes up over time as far as, what am I trying to say? Anyway, this could be core. I forget what I'm trying to say. Damn it, Heather. What am I trying to say? probably likely that like you start with something you know, and then sub in one or two things to kind of get to where you want to get to is more likely to me than creating something from a new or finding some new thing that you love. So like this is the discount version of core where you would just do something like this and say, all right, well I saved 300 points. This is like what Wilhelm did, um, where he had basically if you put the chariot mage in, then you put the other guy in, you would get the Wilhelm version. You put the entropic guy in because he did this but with lust. And you could go even more discount, or you can go the middle ground here, which is where you take the what I was doing before, where you take the for 903, you take this where you get 3 scoring out of core because you only have 2 scoring in the other one, and you get 1 chaff, and you count this as like pseudo chaff, and then you take the flares out here. But then you also run into the not problem, but the you know I don't know what I'm trying to say. What list is that? Just a list. All right. So that's like the discount version. Then you could say that, okay, the more discount version is to make these chosen warrior knights, which are 115 points cheaper for greed. You can even go even cheaper if you want, but you want one like solid scoring unit as well. So you're looking at this, basically you're playing with points as you go. And this is like I said, the template. And then you can kind of go from there, and you can say, I think there's probably something here where if your mage was on foot, I would probably just say, I'm not a huge proponent of going over 4 points because I'm stupid like that, but you could probably do something like this. I mean, it's 63. I probably wouldn't do this shit, but like, whatever. You could do this if you wanted. You could remove pride from one of your units and just go to musician. I don't know. With the mage being like this, it kind of creates this weird. This is where, like, if we started going down the path, like, this would be kind of weird for me because him not being on anything kind of forces me into something in here that I don't like. But at the same time, you could make arguments, or I could make arguments that I kind of like having a barbarian unit because it's scoring, it's cheap, it's you can run your mage out of it if you need to, and more so, it's just something nice to have in the late game to kill with the herald, because sometimes your warhounds die turn 1, and then you're like sacrificing flayers and warriors for your spells, which I don't like. So killing barbarians is a little bit better. And there's probably other things in core like that get interesting, like we like this unit, like just in and of itself is kind of interesting, right? It's 20 barbs, it's scoring, you get paired weapons, so it has a good bit of strength 4 attacks. It's not going to own the world or anything, but it's not bad. And you have throwing weapons. You could take 2 of these, like, right, like this core isn't that bad if you think about it. Are these aren't changing the world, but if somebody steps in front of you, 40 thrown weapons at strength 4 isn't so bad, right? It's cheap. It could do something. You could do a big unit if you wanted. Again, I think the core kind of changes with what's around it, but you always want to try to have like 900 in core. But you want 2 chaff. You're probably putting at least 1 dog unit in. I think what's more likely to happen is you put a dog unit in core and you take a flare unit. I think that's a nice balance of core and chaff. I think where it gets can get interesting is you essentially have almost like 4 levels of this unit. If you say I really want a scoring unit out of special, then you have some choices, right? You have this unit, which is probably the middle ground. Let me just core special. You could take the one I set up before. I mean, this is like the next level, which I don't think I can take away which one. We're going to take flaming banner just because we don't have the points to change it. You just know that the banners are interchangeable. You could say a step up, and I don't even know if it's a step up. Like this is kind of part of the conversation, right? Like this would have to take discipline, and then we'll take one more unit, which is like the super cheap version, right? Rail up and standard position. Right, so you kind of have like 4 levels here where it's increments of like 100 some points, and you know, it depends on what you get for these 100 or so points. There's also things in between. You could take great weapons with pride, which are like a little bit less than this. Chosen knights could be pride with wasteland. You know, they could just be pride, and you would save 30 points. Again, this is kind of interchangeable. I do think all these units have uses and are solid. I just don't know which, like, this is where I would have to play with it and say which one's the best and what do you get for it, essentially. The other place to play around is in your character slot. So you say, all right, at minimum, I want this. This is like the minimum heroes I want, and core is always going to be something. And you know, you can fill this gap with a couple things. You can fill it with a hero that's really fighty, like I do in this one. Nope, old fixed, right? In this one, I fill it with a 600 point guy who has entropic. You could. One idea Thomas and I talked about was turning this guy, this elder, into a. Drop the elder. Let me just copy this list so I don't mess up my own list. You could drop this elder because of monster points, and you could say, I'm going to take, and you're going to drop this guy, and you're going to drop this guy to foot. I know it's a lot, but let's just say it's binding scroll, whatever. No hero's heart, obviously. I guess I put it on the hand weapon, whatever. We know what it was. And then he took, you know, you could do this, and you could say, all right, paired weapons. This build got 10 points cheaper, but it's still very strong hero. And then I believe it was like a wizard giant, just for the extra spell. And what are we missing? Oh, this was chosen knight, right? And then you had like 40 points left. He has to be the general. Okay. Yeah, I know. He's the general. Warrior chosen. And so you have 30 points left. Oh, this didn't have it. You have 40 points left. So do what you want with 40. You could take Scepter, you could take whatever you want. But this is the basis of it too, where you basically upgrade an elder to a Feldric ancestor, and you say, "This is now all right." You know, I upgraded my ancestor because this guy is 770, 515 for the other one. You're paying 255 more than a paired weapon elder, but you get paired weapons. You know, you just look at stats, I guess, right? An ancestor is the same here. He's 2 more wounds, 1 more defense. He's gonna have 7 versus 6 attacks. He's gonna be strength 7, which I actually think is really big. He comes with a Brett weapon of the Dying Ember, things kind of sucks. And you know, he's gonna be offense 9 as opposed to offense 6. So he's a character. I mean, he can kill most characters. Like he just slaps them. He's offense 9. He's gonna hit on 3s with 7 attacks, and he 2s the wound on almost everybody. He can fuck with a lot of things, and being 8 wounds is actually very tough. You do lose the ability to fly on your Herald, but then you kind of say, all right, well, we don't need to take fly as often because we take fly a lot of the times for the spell, but the giant can get toxic breath. Right? So if you kind of go through that logic, it seems pretty good. Ideally, you would love to get potentially +2 to cast on this guy. You could. But that's an example of a list where he said, let's take the points and let's move it into, let's upgrade, right? So you look at this and you say, all right, how I look at this personally is I have an ancestor and I have a marauding giant that cost 1,075 points together. This could also be a 600 point hero and another elder, right? So what's stronger? You could say you want a souped up ancestor and a decent giant with a spell, or do you want a strong hero and another elder, kind of in the other? I was gonna do stuff on UB, but I'm not doing stuff on UB this time. Where's the list? Yeah, I'm looking at. I mean, if you take this template, you can only take you can't take the strongest of characters, right? Because you only have 490 left, and that doesn't quite get you a Chaos Lord. It kind of only gets you. I guess one middle ground I didn't talk about here is you could always do this for your chaff. You can do this is what Germany actually did. You could do this, and then it gets you 550 points. So like, and if I look at this list, I say, oh, I got 50 points. I would do the Wing King build. I'm naming it that. I'm gonna start calling it that, guys. Instead of I don't like Rocket Man, and because fuck it, no one used it enough to make it super popular, even though somebody quote unquote created it. It's like anything, right? You come up with an idea, and what one always comes to mind? What was it that? You come up with an idea for an invention, and somebody else makes it and makes a lot of money, and you say, "I came up with it first, but you didn't actually do anything with it or make it popular." Right? People only remember who made it popular. So the Wing King build, which is this one, right? It fits right in. It fits slots in really nicely. Like this list is not bad. I mean, I could even see shifting the item. So this is like a prime example of when I see this, I know that I can get 903 core and keeping this by adding in by making one of these units Barb Horseman. And honestly, I probably think it's better. Like, I actually do think the Barb Horseman line, I don't like saying line, but people use that word. I do think the Barb Horseman version is better. I just like this core a lot. And then you lose the banners, but whatever. Right? Now you have this. Now, I don't like, obviously, where does the mage go? Because the mage is now. He doesn't, like, he was always going to go. But this is where you keep going. This is where you keep, I could see two things here. I could see now you've basically opened up space to have your mage have Book of Arcane Mastery if you really wanted. Now your magic phase just got even better. Maybe a lot better. I don't know how much better this version is. It sucks to me that you don't have, a unit for your mage. In this particular case, given that you took a flying lord, and this is because you took the flying guy, I could see taking. I know I really like that unit, but this is where I could see taking the barbarian unit for the mage, and then taking like standard banner speed for. This is where like you adapt to the characters, right? Obviously, if this guy was on a horse or something, I would want the horse, but he's not on a horse. He's on a foot, so I could see adapting this version of it. And I have 20 points left, and I have no idea what I would take. A champion here, probably a champ here and shields. I probably do like that or something, just because. Like, that's pretty cool, right? That's not a bad list. It's pretty good. You have 4 scoring, a little lacking on the barb unit, but that unit was never like the key unit. You have, you know, you know, 4 or 5 really strong fast things. You lose the sorcerer mage that can fight, but you gain a fightier version or a castier version that is cheaper. So you save 110 points here, and essentially in my build, you save 110 points here to upgrade this. Right? If you look at my army from before, my fixed one, I essentially, and this is like how I translate a lot of things in my head when I talk about armies. It's just like, what did I get? What did I lose? Because I know what this list does, and then I say, what did I get? What did I lose? Okay, well, I lost this guy for a flying guy. I downgraded this to essentially upgrade the knights to chosen knights, which I think are better. And then I had to downgrade, and I changed core to make it feel better with the characters I had, right? Because I had a character on foot, so I didn't want to I didn't want to waste my warrior units. And at the same time, I had a pride flying guy and banner speed would be really good. So I took speed off of this and gave my warrior speed. So it's whatever, right? This, and then you could look at this build honestly, and you could, like, I think you could take this build and turn this guy into a Portent Lord on a horse. He'd have to be your general. It's 600 points, depending on the build. Did I have like a version of it? Yes. Well, this is a weirder version of it. This is okay. We'll talk about this version real quick. I don't like this version. Why did I take this version? Why did I do this? I did this eventually, but I don't think that's a good. Like, here's a version where, oh yeah, I had to take no mark on the knights because I took pride because I needed him in them. Like, here's like an interesting version. You could up this guy onto a horse. I think I degraded the horse so that I could put in the giants. You could take 2 giants like I had. You could say, all right, I have 100 some points. Why not just take this out and put in? And this kind of gets away from the 2 chaff thing. And this is where it starts to devolve and say, all right, do I really need 2 chaff? No, it doesn't really actually divulge from, right? Like, you could just do the core I did before. Like, you don't have to do this core. Sorry, guys. This is why we do this stuff. Old fix. We know the Portent Lord is. Let's just copy that. So we know so you, like I said, this unit's cheaper, but you have to take it cheaper because you need a spot for him. I kind of like pride on him because it means you don't need trophy rack, but I also don't mind gluttony on him and taking trophy rack. I really think you need the rerolls on redirect or either the 3d6 minimized. This is where like you just get into these. Like, this is the style I like to play. So, you know, should I play it? Should I not play it? I don't know. Should I try something new? I guess you could do this, and then I guess you can take club if it's cheaper. Like this isn't bad. I guess you could do this version where you take the core I talked about. And so I'll talk about why I kind of like this core in this particular build. What I don't like about this core in this particular build is your mage is shit into a war unit, and I don't love that personally because I feel like it's not a waste, but it just doesn't feel as good to me. But you kind of gain this other unit where now you're you gain a chaff, which is one thing. So here you gain a chaff piece. We've talked about this. Like, this list, the thing that only sticks out to me that I dislike about this list is this guy's on foot and has to go in one of these units. The thing I like is this guy doesn't have to go in the knights. He can go in the barbed horsemen and kind of jut out of them as needed. And so you now you can spread your threats out. You're not forced to put your lord in your knights. You can put him with your barbed horsemen easily and charge out of it. Yeah, the only thing I don't really love about this list is exactly what I just said. I don't love that my mage has to go in war. And you could, like I said, it depends on this, right? This is some amount of points. You could just drop it and say, I don't want 2 giants. Though I don't know if 2 giants is better than. You could do this. You could upgrade. I don't think you can get the points to make this where it's 100 and you have 120 left. Yeah, I don't think you have the points to make this. But then if you like keep going down this rabbit hole. If you made this Chosen Knights, you wouldn't have another place for your source, your Chaos Lord. But you could do this, and you could turn your guy and say, I don't want the fighty version. I want the fighty version back. I want you know, I want this version back. Why is he cheap? He's not on a horse. Why do I have so many points left? I guess this wasn't as much of an increase as I thought it would. You could take this version and find 50 points and spend it however you wanted. Whether it's Dragonbane Gem, Gluttony, you could take Pride off of the Warrior Knight unit, though I think it's fine in this. I don't even know what you spend 50 points on. I mean, I guess you could go paired weapons if you really wanted. And it feels bad to spend this, but I guess at some point you wouldn't feel that bad, right? And so this is another thing where you're like, oh, this is pretty good, right? I have 2 monsters, a herald, a super fighty hero, another fighty, 3 single models, 5 single models, good scoring, good chaff, just pure. There you go. If you compare this to my list before, it's just all it does is I got back to the same list I was at before, except you trade the you have to lower the knights a little bit, which gets you the paired weapons, and you turn your entropic into a portent. And this is where like the meta and stuff comes in, because you can play with this all day. You can say, I want the flying guy, which gets you 65, 55 more points. You can say, I want the entropic guy on chariot, which is this. You can say, I want a portent on a steed. You can say, I want a portent on foot, which kind of devolves into something else, because I think you should get a bigger warrior unit. And you could put both of these guys, you could, without even changing anything, you can do Dias and Dias, and they're both still good. And even then, maybe you go to the Casty version if this is the case. You don't really need this, and then you just make one of your units a little bigger and just have a bunker that's there. Now maybe it doesn't go with the rest of your list as well, because your rest list is so fast, and then you're sitting in a unit with, maybe you take Relentless because you don't need speed as much, right? You could take, well, you don't need this unit as much anymore either, so. I don't know. You do something like that. I don't know. You would fill out your core with something. That's too many. You could just. You don't even need pride on this unit because your guy's pride, so you could just do something. I make it work, right? Oh, you don't take the paired weapon. Take the great weapon. Example, right? You could just do something like this, where now you've turned it into, instead of these 2 single models on horses, you're making a super unit here, and then if you had more point, if you dropped these could be greed now, and you would need to find 28 points again. So I don't know. Drop a warrior and drop pride and just take a standard champion. There, example. You could do this if you really wanted. Take a normal unit, fuck pride. Take this. You have pride on the hero. You could take gluttony on the hero. And take trophy rack if you want. Gluttony. I think this is too many points. You'd have to find perfect core, which is actually very difficult in this list. Yeah, because there's not really much else to drop. You could find a way to do it. Yeah, this is probably pretty hard to do this version, but You get what I'm saying. Like you could see where we're going with this. You could keep iterating on things and making it, and you still kind of keep the same base. And I guess what I want to end with, since we're coming up on an hour, is this is basically what I thought about all last night. Except I was in bed and I had to do it in my head / with a calculator, and I didn't even get into the whole behemoth stuff I was thinking about last night. And I'm not sold on the behemoth stuff yet. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll get there at some point. I could see. Fuck, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. It's already too late. We're already committed to it. Which list is it? But I guess it would have to be one of these. I don't like this one. I guess you could do this one. And you could say, did I already make this list? No, this is just a random list. Like, right, you're looking at this and you could say, all right, I'm going to take a Barb Chief on a Wasteland Behemoth with a great weapon. And I've talked about how I actually think this is better than, if you have the hero points. So that's another thing. Like, if you're taking a list where you're not filling your hero with a Chaos Lord, you can shift an Elder into a Barb Chief, and I think that's fair from a monster perspective. And then it kind of opens up your monster point to take a giant. Similar to where you could take the Ancestor here, you could take a Marauding Giant with Monster Familiar. Right? You get another spell. There you go, guys. And then what do you do with the points you have here? I don't know. Upgrade this. This is probably where it becomes a little weirder because, like, even if you upgrade this to 150, you're still going to have 300 points left. This is 155 to make this Chosen Knights. Right? Let me just do this real quick. I'm too into it, guys. Like, this is the kind of shit I do all the time. And I actually had like a point I wanted to make at the end of it, and I haven't been able to make it yet because I'm too into this. Chosen Knights. I even talked about like you could take 6 Feldrakes would be an upgrade, would be something. We're just doing the basic stuff we usually do. I missed something here. I don't want to go ahead and Greed. Ooh, how many points do I have left? 280. No. Can I drop anything? Fuck. I was trying to get. Oh, I can't believe I have 280 points. I need 15 points. This is what I would have done. I would have taken. I hate that this guy went up points. I actually think this guy is actually still really good. He went up 15 points, but he was still a really. Oh God, this would be such a sweet ass list. You need more. You need 20 points because you need to shift this into 4. I guess the only way I would do it, either you're not dropping this, so you go Pride, and then you would do what I did before. You would do my usual. I'm gonna just call it my usual. Like I feel like you can see you can see how I think when it comes to core. And maybe we'll come up with a new core, guys. There's still time, but like I think even this core evolved from normal core, so I'm much better working off something I know and tweaking a little bit than trying to come up with something from scratch. And that's why I have trouble making Helmaw lists for myself because it just comes. I just don't know. I just don't know what to take sometimes, and it always feels bad to me. And if I don't play enough games with it, then I feel bad. Like my comfort zone is very small sometimes. That's my own problem. But there we go. There's another. I would put champion. There we go. Pretty solid list as well. Again, I don't like that my wizard has to go in the goddamn. This pisses me off so much. This wizard, I love. Listen, you're not going to tell me. Sure, it's great. I just wish I would pay the 80 points to put him on something so he's not dying in a damn thing. You could say, fuck Book of Arcane Mastery, put him on a horse, put him on a dais. And honestly, on a dais, I think he's okay. I mean, like, yes, +2 cast on your first spell is great, but if you really for 5 points more, you can do. You can just make him tankier. And sure, it doesn't help you if he doesn't die, but like, and then you just take the champion. But like this guy, right? In a unit, he's pretty okay, and he can actually charge things and like hold them up. He can take challenges. Like this unit would be really hard to break if you could get a standard in this unit, which I wish I could. I just don't have the points. But if you could get a standard in that unit, it'd be tough to crack. He'd be really tough to crack because he would be there. He also, one thing I like about him, if he has a save and if he's like this, is if you flank somebody with the Pride Warriors, it's also very difficult to. One, you can hold up a lot of characters because a 1-up save guy with 4 wounds can just survive a lot longer than the Warriors can. And you'll hold your steadfast longer, if not for 2 or 3 turns, because you're probably gonna take 2 turns to kill the character, then you got the champion, or you the champion, then the character. You have 3d6 leadership checks, and you have steadfast for longer because you have 4 models on the one. So you're gonna be steadfast for a while. Like you could take it for a long time, depending if they had a rank or not. But also, just if you flank something with this unit with that Dais guy, you have a rank unless they kill 4 warriors, 5 warriors, as opposed to 1. Which I think is great because I've flanked thing a lot of times with that damn thing and it doesn't. So I actually think putting the mage on the dais like this is not a bad version. It's not the chariot version. It's not super fast, but he's safe. He's still useful in the unit. And you could do other things. If you want to go 3 scoring, you could make these pride units bigger. I think you can get almost a really good core by doing this. And they both have standards, whatever. Like I think Lil Thomas does this core, but he also has his big thing is he'll have another scoring outside of it. So he wouldn't do like the list I'm showing you now. Damn, this is. I mean, I know I'm over points by 10. I could just drop something. I could drop a standard. Don't like it, but I would just drop. I can't drop a warrior. I have to drop a standard. Like this is I kind of like it. Like this is good too. I guess it's 1 less scoring, but your scoring's a little tankier. You didn't really need like it's nice to have the barb horseman for this guy, but you can get around it. You still have 1, 2, 3, 4 monsters. Yes, the Chaos Lord might just be stronger because you have a Fighty Lord, and this being an elder, and you're paying here essentially for the giant, and the barb chief is the same price as a Corn Lord. So 10 minutes later, final statement would be, this is where the meta comes in. We can talk all day, round and round, about Flying Lord, Porn Lord, Tropic Lord, Ancestor, Chosen Knights, Feldrake Elder, or Chosen Knights versus the Feldrake unit, which is 83 more points, which you'd have to find points for. The Barb Chief. If a lot of the template stays the same, and now you're saying, well, what do we really need out there? If there's a lot of multiple wound monstrous units, fucking maybe you take the Porn Lord and just go screw them over. If your problem is all these characters with souped up weapons, maybe you take Entropic. You could even take Entropic on a Cardassian and put him with the Chosen Knights if you didn't want to be sniped out by cannons turn 1. If the chariot was a problem. And also, one thing I like about chariots, but I don't like about chariots, is they don't have the forward movement that the rest of the army does. So if you are taking like the Portent Lord on a horse, even the mage on a horse, and or the flying guy, you're getting up there a lot faster. So if you are rushing the enemy turn 1, you're just way ahead of the whole army, right? Because before the chariot lord moves 8, he's 16 away. If the enemy backs up, you basically don't got to charge. Whereas, the Horse Lord moves 14, charges the same distance, and all of a sudden he's 6 inches closer to start. It's a lot harder to get away from him, smaller frontage, harder to block. Obviously impact if they're nice, but they don't after the charge. It doesn't fucking matter, right? So there are some benefits to being on a horse, even though you lose a wound. You're not exposed as much. You're exposed to snipes and stuff, but you're not exposed to like cannons. And you can move faster turn one, which is actually more helpful than it seems against some armies when you just want to rush. Because that second wave doesn't get there. I mean, the chariot. I think the chariot mage did it well because he was always kind of like a support piece. But I think that's one thing I didn't like about the chariot lord. It was he was just like he was just a little slow compared to the rest of the army, which was a little annoying. Anyway, there we go, guys. Another video talking about lists. I have no idea what I'm going to play in my game on Thursday, but it'll probably be something variation. All right, thanks for watching.